Thank you.
As she says.
Keith, it's brilliant. And the reason for recording is because some of us can't be here this morning. Life has gotten in the way. It's just what happens. Just to say, though, that we will put you into smaller groups so you can meet new people. You've had a few chats on the team channels, so you'll get the opportunity to have a chat in virtual person. But those groups, I believe, won't be recorded. So, and we will leave you to it as well for the 20 minutes to do that. So we are joined by an esteemed guest who is in the centre of this. Yes, looking behind him. Stephen, hello, can you introduce yourself? Tell us something about you, your memorable facts, because we will share those. And let us know a little bit about your week, being this week.
Okay, can everybody hear me? There's a nod. Okay. The memorable fact is that last week I was working from 9 to 5 on a program that used Zoom solidly, and I thought, yeah, it seems to be working okay. Till this morning at about 9:05, I tried to get on Zoom and struggled. Couldn't get on. The password refused to let me in. I used the phone. I managed to get through on the phone, and now I'm on my tablet. So I've never used this device for talking to Zoom. So that's it. I'm now struggling with the technology. You're doing very well, and I'm not. So there you go. What else can I tell you? It's been a joy since the early part of March when I was in Leeds doing my last bit of training, and we all decided that we'd leave and go home. I didn't realise quite then that we'd never leave home, but there we are. Here we are on Zoom doing some training. And it was a joy also to try and record some training using the OBS software. So thanks, Laura. You'll be able to comment on whether the OBS software is any better or worse than Loom. Is it Loom that Vicky used? Yeah, so I apologise to all of you if you found my ramblings incoherent. They're very similar to the ones I present when I'm actually with you. So what you actually saw was the incoherent ramblings of somebody who's been trying to do this for a while.
Thank you, Simon. It's really lovely to have you here. I know that the past week has been battering from all sides and directions. So for an early start, we are grateful to be here. And for everybody else, this is your opportunity really to have a conversation with Simon as best we can from a virtual perspective. Unfortunately, Vicky won't join us today. She's been very poorly for the past week. It's not coronavirus related, thank goodness. She's at the hospital now. She's at home relaxing. She has very much offered to be in touch with you either through email or through a live chat soon. I don't know when soon is, so bear with us. But I'll try to answer any questions about research purposes today. But do bear in mind that I won't be able to answer all of them in as much detail as Vicky could. So park them to one side if we get into too much detail, but somebody in the team will pick those up very soon to help you progress at the same stage as everybody else. But we'll begin because it's your opportunity to go and have a chat with each other. Thank you so far for having a go. Stephen has invited you to take part in very many different activities. As I said, I know that some of you began yesterday, so the activities maybe haven't been thought about in too much detail, but it's worth listening to each other to learn from one another because you'll all be at different stages. But this morning there's a good chance for you to go into a smaller group, and we've grouped people as best we can to have a go at your verbal business cards. We'll invite you back into the main room for 15-20 minutes to have a go at sharing it for the main group. Now when you're in your smaller group, say hello. This is really informal, we're not recording that bit as well. If you want to hide under the desk, let people know so that they can coax you out again and show that they're a smiley person that will help you out. And think about feedback as well. So if there's something that you spot that your colleague can improve upon, if there's too much going on, ask them, what about this, what about that, some suggestions that you can help them with. And then Simon's here to have a good discussion with you about your your content, and maybe probe a little bit more as well. We'll go through the other activities.
Can I just say very quickly before you rush off, I think it's important that you realise that this verbal business card is really difficult to get right. It seems unnatural to try and say my research helps who solve what problem, offering the following benefits, because it's sort of counter to how we as academics try and talk about our research. And going into your small room, if you haven't met the people before, think about that communication pyramid. Jenny's invited you to share feedback on how each of your verbal business cards has gone down. And remember this sort of trust pyramid that you're trying to get into? Yes, we're all on this Action for Impact program. But if you've not met people before, it's a bit scary to start trying to share your, this is what I do in my real life, and have them give you feedback. So be very sensitive to how you give and receive the feedback. If we were in one room together, we'd have done all those silly games that Jenny loves to do to break down our embarrassment levels and realize that we're there for a good time and everybody is supportive. But this is a bit different. The word cloud should probably have on it, I just want to hide under a desk, because I really struggle with meeting people in this sort of different way, because I can only see one person on my screen, so I can only see Steve. So I'm judging everything on what's, hey, there you go. I'm judging everything on what Steve's doing. I know that if I was to scroll through my screen, I'd see all your other happy smiley faces, but I'm struggling with this technology. So just try and practice as much as you can. This verbal business card is such an important tool that you'll refine and refine and refine. And I spent last week with researchers from around the UK, trying to help them take their research out of the university to find out what's going on. And we've had over 350 odd researchers now on the AFIJuly program. And it's always something that takes weeks to develop and lots of practice, but it's so important. So have a go, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, Jen?
Thank you. So we're just past 9:45. Let's say 15 minutes. It's quick, but it's mainly really for you to have a go and say hello to each other. Laura, do you have everything you need to put people into rooms? You can use the chat if you need help. You can ask for help, and one of us will come and give you a hand. So the purpose of the next 15 minutes is to say hello, share your verbal business card as best you possibly can, and to get some feedback and for feedback as well. We'll come back into the main room, we'll ask volunteers to share yours, and then we'll get into a bit of a discussion. Okay? All right, have some fun. Thank you. Laura, over to you.
Yep, so as if by magic, you'll all be randomly transported to another room. You can use the raise the hand function, and I'll also send round just a message of a 1-minute warning, just so you have some time to wrap up. Okay, so have fun.
Hey, look at that.
Marie, we've just been talking about your memorable moment. I hope you don't mind, because about how you got in the car. I think the majority of us have seen this on the Teams channel. It's one of my favourite ever memorable moments over the past 2 years, where you got in the car outside Central Station. Was it 5 minutes into the journey?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then we both looked at each other, and she said, "I don't think I know you." I said, you know, and I was the same. And then she said, "Well, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to the RPS, you know, just where the business park was."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I'll drop you off there anyway." But it was a tense few moments. We felt like, you know, she'd got in a car with a serial killer or something.
And there you are, ever so smiley and lovely. So, you know, she looked out, I think she had a good day. Yeah, thank you for that. Have we got everybody back? Are we all here? Yes, we're all still smiling. Just anybody, which is brilliant. And hopefully that was useful for you, even just say hello to somebody else that you haven't met before, because we don't get much chance to do a lot of that at the minute. But also, hopefully it was more productive than that, even more so, in that you've got the chance to share what you do, who you are, in a structured way. And it's a little bit weird, We appreciate that, but it's a good opportunity to have a go. So I'm going to hand over to Simon, and he's going to ask you a few questions. Team.
Well, no, I just really would like to hear your thoughts, comments, suggestions. What went well? How difficult you found it? Did you learn anything about the colleagues who you've seen probably on the Teams sort of chatting, and Marie's insight into her randomness of getting into a car is a great example of how trusting we are in life. A high level of trust that she had with that random person. But any comments now that I can see you all, having returned to my main technology? God knows why it wasn't working. Any thoughts, comments? Oh yes, Pavlina.
Hello, Simon.
Hello.
I was in the breakout room with Alex, and we exchanged our business cards. And I think we both agreed that it would be good to have different versions, as you said on your video, to have like in your back pocket different versions of it. So the one that I did was a more general one, and I would like to do one for conferences, for networking, which would be with people that they already know what I do. And then another one I do a lot of STEM outreach and engagement activities. So most of the time I have to explain what I do and why I do this. So I want to make one like that, because it's really good for networking, these science events. And the one that I did was more about how to explain, for example, now to Alex or to all of you what I do. But I like the concept of the verbal business card. I knew the elevator pitch before as a way of to explain what you do, but this is much better. So thank you.
It's the shorter version of your elevator pitch. It literally is just there to try and act as a filter, because you don't know who you're talking to, and so to avoid wasting other people's time and your time with somebody who really doesn't have any interest in what you're doing. When you go into a networking event, for example, you want to find people with whom you can have a conversation, and it's not rude to very quickly find out that you've got nothing in common, and you know, just say politely, thank you very much, I'll there are other people I need to go and see. But when you're doing your public outreach stuff where everybody's interested in what you're doing, then you've got to have something that will draw people in. It's got to be enticing. And I'll repeat again this 3-brain bit, because so many of us in academia make assumptions about who we're talking to and the level of communication, and it's not trivializing our research. It's how can we, as quickly as possible, get the message across to people so they will understand what we're trying to do, and realizing that everything gets filtered by your reptilian brain. Everything gets filtered. If you don't get past that, it doesn't matter how clever you are or your research is, the person will find a reason to not engage, because something will have worried them, upset them, not engaged them. So don't be afraid of coming up with something that captures people's imagination, and come up with your own version of this sort of one sentence. Again, regularly on this ICURE program, when I'm working with people who are doing world-beating stuff like you, they will talk about, last week we had a guy who's come up with a very innovative way of testing for malaria. Now, malaria has been around for a long time, but it still affects half the world's population. It still kills tens of thousands, if not millions of people. So just if you've got some facts about how important your research is, put that up front. You know, even today, half the world's population is affected by malaria. We have just capture people's imagination, talk about the scale, bring the social bit in, whatever it might be. We've got social scientists who are doing amazing work trying to deal with issues of the marginalization of ethnic communities in this country, and how they're not able to access all of the support services that we think are available to everybody. So if you've got data, whether it's a social scientist or a hard scientist, just to show people the scale of the problem that your research is addressing, that will capture attention, that will capture imagination. We had an amazing researcher on a program a while ago who had developed a new sort of stocking. And you're going, well, that's really exciting. And she talked about the number of people who die from DVT and the problems with circulation in certain groups of people. And she put those numbers up front and center. And you go, wow, I didn't realize that people dying from blood clots in the leg was so significant. And then she talked about how she'd developed this new compression device, stocking. Now, if she started talking about stockings up front, you'd have gone, as a bloke, I'm not really interested in stockings, but putting the fact up that if you're not careful, you can be killed by poorly managed blood flow, really made everybody stop and think. So in Pavlina, your situation, you will have so many exciting bits of information to share, to draw people in, to make them realize that you're a human being who you can communicate with, and then you can start moving in and start moving up that trust pyramid, but also bringing out the science maybe in what you're doing. But yeah, brilliant.
Stephen, I think you, or Steve, sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, it was more of a comment, really. This exercise did make me realise how insular our laboratory is in terms of we talk about the how all the time, and actually thinking about the benefits is something that we don't often do. So just something as simple as that is to forget about the how for now and just think about what the benefits are. Just that in itself sharpens your mindset into a different place, I think. Definitely. That is
so great to hear, Steve. Again, as academics, we are judged on the how. I mean, that's what we put in our publications. That's what we want to share in our lectures. You know, that's what gets us excited. That's what, you know, gets us out of bed in the morning and do what we do. But I think if you do as an exercise, you write down the features of your research, and then try and say, well, what's the benefit that brings to some end beneficiary or whatever it might be. It really is an important exercise, because when you're looking for impact, that's what, when you go and talk to people, they will judge the impact of your research from. What does it do for them? It might be other academics, you might be working with a group of academics, but you've still got to solve their problems, and they will articulate their problems in a particular way. So you've got to address the issues that they are faced with. And so it's really important that you have this opportunity to, as you say, step back and do a little bit of this reflection and say, well, what is it we're trying to do? You know, yes, we're doing all sorts of clever things with bits of technology and in our group, and yes, that is important. There will be new hows, there will be new bit, but I think it's always worth going through that exercise of saying, well, what does this actually deliver? What are the benefits that accrue from this? And using those to help you communicate the value and then the impact of your research. This is what this program is all about, to make you identify, well, what is it that our research is delivering for you, your research group, for the university, and for society more widely. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask, has anybody, when listening to other people's verbal business cards, anything really useful? Has there been anything that you'd really liked to hear about anybody else's verbal business cards? Any thoughts?
I thought the few I heard were very good, and I think they were better than mine. And I think it's made us realise that I thought I was pitching mine to really down the pub, but actually maybe I wasn't. So yeah, I found straight away I could see the other ones were maybe better pitched and zoom more out than mine.
I was
Sorry, I was going to just agree with that comment. I read mine out and then realised how bad it was, and then listened to Judith's and realised that I needed to modify my approach.
Can I just say that Karis's was actually really, really good. And when I heard hers, I thought, oh my God, mine's really rubbish compared to hers. So I suppose it's very much about perception, isn't it? And one of the things that I found this really useful is actually giving you that little bit of confidence. So actually, I'm prepared to go and talk to somebody, because one of the things I absolutely detest and find very scary at networking events is going to talk to people and thinking, what am I going to say? Even though I know what I want to say, how am I going to say it? So this is really, really useful for me.
And that's really reassuring that even just in that small amount of time, you've had the opportunity to have a go, to test how it sounds to you. Your ears have heard you say this out loud, and your brain will translate that into a way that either feels comfortable. It's like trying a coat on. Is this my coat? Oh no, that's not quite right. And you see how others wear theirs, and is it something that you can improve upon? I think whenever we're sharing anything that's an extension of us with others, it's a risk. It can feel comfortable, and that's the point of this program, is to take you out of your comfort zone safely, have a test, have a try, and return all the more prepared to do your work in the best way possible, so that you're proud of it. And when you hear yourself say it out loud to strangers at networking events, conferences, or even just to your PI or your supervisor, it sounds like you, and it sounds like something that you're proud to share time again. And Judith, I'm the same as you. Networking, no thanks, I'd just hide under the table. And we've built this program entirely around communicating. We start right at the beginning with tell us who you are, something about you, and we will end where you can hold your shoulders back, your head up high, and say, this is me, and this is why, and a bit of how, but not too much. So we get you to a point where all of that feels a lot more comfortable. And it's really reassuring to know that it's been useful so far.
Can I just ask, did any of you manage to try the listening exercise? Oh, okay, so is it BT?
Beata. It's
Beata. Beata, sorry.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
It was actually really good, and I did find out I can talk about 2 minutes about myself. The third time was difficult. No, it was nice.
Okay.
It was a bit like a chat, but you get time to just speak rather than having somebody agree with you, and you just get a nod or so, which is, yeah, and you're right, we start doing all this. And
the importance of giving the person, because if you get to talk to somebody whose opinions you're interested in and who's got information that you want to gather, just giving them space to collect their thoughts can be so powerful. So the power of silence, people will fill that space. And even through this medium, if you've got a video and you're just sitting there, and they will fill it.
Yeah, I think you talk more at higher levels about yourself than you would otherwise. You tell them more about to keep it going as well, because it's your story, so all the rest of you goes into it as well. So if you have more time, I think you fill it with that as well. Yeah. But that was nice.
So if you haven't had a chance to do that exercise, oh sorry, was that Helen? Did you want to say something? No, I saw you waving your pen was going, I want to say something. But if you haven't had a chance to do it, try it. Find somebody. It doesn't have to be a fellow academic, could be a member of your family or a neighbor or somebody you're allowed to socially not distance from, or even go through this. But try that exercise of just giving the person time to speak and not interrupt, and see how you can use this medium to demonstrate all of the non-verbal communication to allow them to talk. It really is a very powerful tool. And when you actually go out to talk to people and gather information sort of seriously, remember talk as little as possible, which is why you need these very short, insightful statements, like the verbal business card, and then be structured and planned in terms of what you're trying to gather. And that sort of links into the why are we using planning tools like canvases? The canvas is there literally to structure your thinking, to put down as much information as you can, whether it's about your research, your intellectual property, or yourself. I don't know if Jenny's mentioned that you can use these tools to promote yourself, to define and create a career for yourself. The canvas is literally just a structure to put down your thoughts and your assumptions and your hypotheses that you need to test by talking to people. And that's how you get the information. And you're looking for a way to develop and progress yourself, your research, or your IP that you've generated, the hows that Steve was talking about. And you need to have those assumptions rigorously tested. And rigorous analytical testing requires honest feedback from people. And you get that through these various ways and tools that Jenny and the team are putting together for you to help you get genuine feedback. And yes, those scientists amongst you will know you're trying to identify a little bit of signal in a very noisy world. So how do you go about filtering out the signal? Well, that's where your cleverness comes in. That's where your years of rigorous analytical, critical evaluation of data and information comes in. But you've got to gather that data first. So you've got to go out and talk to people and let people talk and do more listening. So I should really shut up because I'm talking too much. Sorry, Jenny.
Oh, that's why you're here, Stephen. Did anybody, having had a go at the verbal business cards, have feedback from your course colleagues? Did anybody change anything? Did anybody think, we'll change that? There's something that I need to do differently? Any thoughts?
Hi. Hello, everyone. I think what I felt after listening to my peers' verbal business card was that I really, because when I said my verbal card, I had to, after speaking twice, I had to give them a little bit context. So it was not clear what I was saying. It was clear in my head, but when I was telling them, I really had to give them the context. Okay, I'm a PhD student and I'm doing this, so to make them understand. And because I was also not very clear of it making any sense, so I think I'll have to change that. Yes, Laura.
I'll add to that. So I thought your verbal business card was really good. You did clarify those bits, but I don't think you actually needed to. I think it came across. I think that it felt like that was your self-confidence. You felt like you needed to clarify who you are or justify who you are, but you didn't.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Yeah.
That's very reassuring to see that you're all working together as well. And then again, to reinforce that idea of just having a go, because you are in safe hands. I think for Action for Impact to be useful to you, we always say this, irrespective of what format we're using, you have to have a go. Otherwise, you're too passive and the opportunity will skip you by. And I don't think you'll ever really get another opportunity like this, full stop. Not just now, not just in the future, but full stop. It's unique in that it's very focused on the researcher, not just the research. And so for Laura to give Priyanka that immediate feedback, that's really, really helpful. You can choose to do nothing about it. It's a gift, but nonetheless, you can stick it in the cupboard and forget all about it. But I think actually, ultimately, we will learn from each other. And we've tried to mix you up as best we can, but you'll find that there are some commonalities as well, just to make that slightly easier for you to have somewhere to hook your reveals, your evidence, your talking. But ultimately, by the end of the program, you will have had the chance to speak to each person on the course. Is anybody going to have a go? Not what I just said about having a go. Steve?
Yeah, sure. Can I ask a question before I share mine? Because it touches on a theme that Simon discusses in another talk, and it's to do with filtering and trusting the feedback. So in academia, I find a common theme is whatever piece of work you give to somebody, they'll always have their corrective iteration on it. And it can go round and round and round. And as long as you pass the work to somebody, they'll have their red pen out. And I think a classic example I use is Ronaldo dressed as an old man in the street. And he asked some coach to observe his left foot. And this coach was like, oh, his left foot, it's not very good. The way he strikes the ball is not. And Ronaldo was striking the ball as he's always struck the ball. And because this guy had the perception of this old man dressed up, it was, well, he needs improvement. Similarly, when you're getting feedback like this, and it's great to have different opinions, but how can you trust who's giving you the correct opinion, I guess, is the... and at what point do you kind of use your own intuition that actually this is my passion, this is what I want to say about it, I've done it for longer than anyone else? That would be a question.
Shall I start and then others can chip in? Steve, that's a really interesting analogy and insight, because yes, most of us in the world we live in are expected to assess work that's presented to us. And I always, when I was an academic and I had a team, I was always challenging my academics to use, if we give a percentage, that means that we're using the full marking range from 0 to 100. And I would always challenge, why are you giving a particular mark? So some of my colleagues would never mark above 80% and never below 35. So you're using the whole assessment range. And this used to be a real bugbear of mine, because I was saying, well, why do you never go above 80? You've said this piece of work is an outstanding piece of work, brilliantly done, the research is great, etc. So what more could that person have done? What more could you have done? Oh, well, and we expect, we're always giving, we've always got to find something, you're right, we've got to find something that isn't quite good, but, and I think quite often that's an artificial to justify that we're better than you because we're, I've got a PhD or I'm a this, that and the other, I'm a prof or, and so I think in our world, I think, yes, you have that caveat that it's expected that we will give some feedback, we may not actually give positive feedback because we can't think of anything positive. We'll say that wasn't very good, that you didn't do that well. And the Ronaldo analogy, I think, is really quite interesting because it's very hard to imagine a better left foot. But when you go outside of the academic bubble and you go and you talk to people who are, through their daily experiences, dealing with issues where your research could make their lives better, you will probably find that the feedback that you get will, if you get to this trust level where the person feels they can talk to you about what it's like doing their day job and the issues they have with the current ways things are done, you will start to get people unloading on you because you're not selling them anything. Because if you were selling something, they would be locked up because they're used to being sold to. But you're a researcher, so you're interesting. You might actually make their lives better, and you will be amazed. You will get conflicting bits of information, Steve. It probably won't be the same sort of feedback that you'd get from a peer review on your latest publication, which sort of sets out to be as vicious as possible, in my limited experience. But when you're talking to people where your research may actually make their lives better, they will tell you as much as they can, and there will be some noise around there because they may not have understood exactly what your research might do for them. But I think you'll find the feedback you get outside of academia will be somewhat more honest than sometimes you might find inside academia, where you're dealing with people for whom you might be a threat. because you actually are probably cleverer than them, and your research is probably better than their research. And they're probably going, oh my God, there's this young thing. I've been working my life on this and I never thought of that. So yeah, really interesting how you judge what you trust in terms of feedback.
Does anybody else have any other experiences or comments on the Alex?
I was just going to add to what Steve said, like a comment, more general comment really. But like if quite often I would try and think about if I had seen someone else saying the same thing I had said, what would I think about that? Or if someone gives me feedback and I think of it in a different situation, and then that helps me think of whether that feedback is useful or not. Because sometimes when it's your own, it doesn't, you can just dismiss it in some ways when it's maybe not necessary. Whereas if you think of it in a different context, sometimes that's helpful. But I think also, maybe sometimes you should care about the criticism that you don't think is right, though, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who maybe judge your grant applications or stuff like that who'll have a different opinion, and just because it's a different opinion that might not be right, they still have to, they'll still hold that opinion. And yeah, so I don't know, I think there's got to be some middle ground, even if you don't necessarily believe completely that that feedback is justified. I think if lots of other people think that, then you'll run into troubles if you don't take that on board.
Yeah, I think that those are really pertinent points to think about with feedback. It's a very personal thing to either offer it or receive it, and it's your choice as to what you do with it. See it as a gift, and I mentioned you can stick it in the back cupboard and let it gather dust if you want, but if you realize that your back cupboard is full of these things and they're all covered in dust, and as Alex says, there's potentially a pattern forming there and you can start to learn from it, but it might be an uncomfortable truth. It might be something that actually you need to change your path of your focus in your research, and that could be when you're way into it and feels like, you know, can't back out of this now. But I've seen this happen very many times. I'm sure Simon has, for people who have I want to say a light bulb moment because I can't think of anything else to say, but you know, this realization partway through an established path to change it. And sometimes that can be a personal response because it doesn't fit with your values. There's an expectation, an external expectation that you have to do it this way because it seems good, because you should. But actually that's not a life well lived, because it's so much effort and you know, if you think about how much time you think about your research, your daily life, it's most of the time. And so for that to not quite fit with you is a big deal. But if there are very many people surrounding you who are pushing you into a particular route, but it still doesn't feel right, or the feedback they're giving you doesn't sit, then there's a change that needs to happen. And certainly this program can help you with that. The people we have, not just your course colleagues, but the facilitators throughout, are used to dealing with that type of challenge, and it is a challenge. One way we encourage everybody to talk about their research is to consider just what are you good at, but what are you good for. And sometimes that can give you a different perspective from which to talk about your research. So we talk about impact, so the personal impact. Why are you? Why is it you that's doing this? What have you got to offer? And why will you make that difference? And that can be quite scary to share yourself with the world, but it provides a different perspective on potentially an established area of research. And then thinking about the societal impact. So who's it for, as Simon has mentioned, the benefits of this? Why should we care? Why should we listen to you? And that actually is the story of your research. And that's a really exciting part to get your teeth into. And we'll come on to that into week 2. Today I'll release content. And I promise you'll have some really good fun with that. It'll open up a new perspective on your research. And then potentially the commercial aspect, which we can talk about if it's appropriate for you, but it's worth thinking about them as a way to share your benefit with those who will benefit from it. And it's not the only way, it's the way. So there's always the come back to point, which is, what am I good for, not just what am I good at. And in terms of the how many cooks do I listen to make this cake, how many recipes do I look at, and Simon talked about recipes and stuff in the cupboard. Well, I'm often asked this around market research: how long does market research last for? It's for the life of the research. So I think it's worth checking in at certain points along your research experience that it fits with what you intended to do, that you're surrounding yourself with useful people, not just those who want you to do it for their own agenda, or that it's quicker this way, or it's cheaper this way, but actually it fits right with you, and that you are able to voice your opinion. So that often, depending on your relationships with those who help make things happen, is an opportunity now during this program for you to test that. And a verbal business card is a starting point with it. And you get through this program where you're able to communicate why you're doing this. And that is a really happy place to come back to, because it's what started you in the first place. And in terms of who you listen to and what you do with that, you'll start to build your gut instinct. And I know many people go, well, that's not robust enough. I'm not there yet. And I promise, and it's guaranteed, that as you go through different experiences in life, not just career, not just research, you'll start to begin to build that and trust it, and have it as a foundation in which to put other stronger things. So you knowing why you're doing it and why you're capable of it is about the confidence that allows you to then invite people to have an opinion, and for you to take that, evaluate it, and do something with it. And that could be discarded, but you have the confidence to say, that's not right because I know this, this, and this. So it's about trusting it and testing it and go. Always come back to having a go. You'll hear me say that. Any other points on that about feedback, or who you ask? If you wave at me, I can spot you. Okay. So anybody going to have a go? The verbal business card? Have a try? Simon will be the one who will feedback.
Yes, should I start?
Yes, please, Steve.
If everybody, I don't know because it's an interactive platform, but if people turn off the videos, the bandwidth gets freed up. But I'm not sure if it'll matter. It might be all right. There's not loads. Okay, I'll just play it anyway and see. So, can you host disable participant screen sharing? Could you?
So Laura will have a go at that now. She's thumbed up.
Okay, cool. Can everybody see that or not? Hi there. My name is Stephen Porter. Oh, hang on 2 seconds. Sorry. I'll just turn it up. Hi there. My name is Stephen Porter, and I'm a Doctor of Neuroscience at Durham University. My research provides new insights into how specific brain cells encode and retrieve memories. This work helps clinicians, researchers, and academics to better understand the inner workings of a very complicated structure of the brain called the hippocampus. Turns out the hippocampus is critical to learning and memory, and is also one of the first areas of the brain to be attacked during diseases such as Alzheimer's. It's through this understanding that drugs can be developed to help treat diseases such as Alzheimer's. And obviously this has direct benefits for all those disease sufferers.
Thank you, Stephen. Over to you, Simon.
Okay. It took a while for you to get to the thing that was going to get to me, because I'm very old and I'm probably getting close to your target demographic. So your research helps. Is it academics understand the damage that Alzheimer's does to the hippocampus?
Yes. So yes, I'd say overall, yeah. Whenever I get asked this question, in the PI's response is always, We do it because we love digging around in the lab and doing experiments, but you're not allowed to say that. You've got to have, as you say, this overarching. So yeah, overall, it's essentially helping. We look at the single cell level how cells encode memories. So overall, it's understanding the inner workings of a memory center in the brain. And by being able to understand that at the molecular and cellular level, you can then see how drugs, etc., act upon those memory cells. And it turns out that these cells are the first to be attacked during Alzheimer's and dementia-related diseases. So how they work and how you treat them is essential to try and stop the onset of Alzheimer's.
Okay, so you're not doing drug discovery. You're, by understanding the significance of particular cells in the brain that are how memories are created. By understanding.
So I'll give you an example. So I discovered a new brain cell. So like
it's over there. It's in the cupboard. There it is. Wow, look at that.
That wasn't me. My mother-in-law got this.
Oh, come on. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so go on. Sorry, go on.
So I think, obviously, what you said has, in me, got me thinking. So I'm trying to ask questions to understand more.
Yeah.
So it's done a job.
Yeah.
My only criticism was it took a while to get to the bit that was interesting for me.
Yeah.
So to understand that your research into cellular levels inside the brain that affect memory, and the impact that diseases like Alzheimer's can have on these fundamental particles of memory, is significant in terms of helping people with drugs identify the key elements that will reduce or minimize the impact of that.
Exactly.
So if you could find a succinct way of putting that rather than my ramblings, then I think
I tried for a long time. It's hard because I didn't want to broach the hippocampus, but then without giving context to the structure, it's quite crucial to know that this is the center of the brain that Alzheimer's attacks. So,
but that's the second. I would say that's the second level of conversation. Everybody has a brain and a memory, and as you get older, you increasingly get worried about decay and degradation and problems like Alzheimer's, and so I think you've got a real hook in terms of you're doing fundamental research that will help drug or interventions that will affect or minimize the impact of Alzheimer's by understanding the fundamental workings of at the cellular level inside the brain. And then you've got more than enough to help filter out what level of conversation you need to have after that, because you've caught the imagination, you've got the interest. Before you get to hippocampus, you've got to get through various bits of the other bits of the brain. And if I'd known we got a neuroscientist, if I'd done my homework, Jen, I wouldn't have talked about my rubbish understanding of my 3 reptilian brain stuff. You've got a neuroscientist there. Why isn't Steve doing this? For God's sake, come on, you should be there, helping everybody else out. What do you want a physicist talking about neuroscience for? God. But that was, so for me it worked. Other people, I mean, I'm sure Jenny can give some feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for having a go. And the world has still turned, everybody, and everybody's still smiling. So you see that it's worth having a go, and nothing bad can happen, only good things. Steve, thank you for sharing that. I think it was really interesting that you played a video of it because you're here. So I thought that was a safe way of having a go. So we might test you another time to just put you on the spot because I think that you're probably quite good at that. I think Simon's comments, as always, are valid, and I'm not a neuroscientist. A little bit about told me, just simply because I work with researchers and I read some stuff. But I didn't know immediately why I should care. So I think I might be sort of politely nodding, thinking about my dinner, and then, oh, you've mentioned why I'm going to die from this, or, you know, why I should be listening further. So if you put that up front without horrifying people and making them run away, then I'm immediately hooked. I know that from week 2 onwards, this will become all the easier for everybody to be able to think in that way. We'll start storytelling, and there'll be people that you immediately think of from your childhood, irrespective of what nationality experiences you've had growing up. Somebody in your life told you a great story and you remember them for that. And it's that type of hook, as Simona said, because we're all really selfish. We want to know what's in it for me. And we might not necessarily say that up front, but when we're listening, we need to know why. So I think finding a way for you to not terrify everyone, tell horror stories immediately, but actually should care. I think you're nearly there, and that's exciting. Potentially over the next couple of weeks, we'll bring that in and keep seeing how you're getting on. Has anybody else got any comments? Anybody else works with Steve on this? Yeah. Oh, hi, Laura.
Hello. I was just following on from what Simon said. I kind of took 3 things away from that. Firstly, memory is important for all of us, and it's affected by disease. You need to treat drugs. You need drugs to treat that. You need to understand how the drugs work. But to me, those were the backwards way round when you presented it. So I feel like there were definitely the 3 components there, and I felt like if you just said your sentences the opposite way around, it would have made it a lot easier for me. But I kind of got why you were doing what you were doing. I was kind of hooked from the beginning because I'm interested in neuroscience. So.
Thank you, Laura. That's helpful. Simon, you'll realise that there's quite a few people here who about that stuff. So yeah, we're all learning. That's brilliant. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Laura and Simon for those insights. We'll continue to work on this as much as we can, and throughout the live sessions, you're welcome to use the chat for any questions which we can pick up. This is our first one. It might feel a little bit clunky and a little bit weird. By week 3, you'll be pushing to tell me your thoughts and to support each other, which is great. We're going to finish up in the next few minutes or so. I just wanted to invite final comments from Simon while he's here. If I can do that, any thoughts, Simon?
Always remember to unmute. I'm genuinely really sad that I can't be with you in person, and I'm really sad that we weren't able to host those random sessions I do so that I could have judged some sort of feedback. And especially when I started trying to give you some helpful ways of putting your messages together, realizing that I've got a group of neuroscientists, that would have been quite exciting to have your insights. So the fact that you've come to listen is amazing, because you realize I know absolutely nothing about neuroscience, but you're all clever and you're here, and it's really, really nice to see you, to realize that you're creating a cohort, and it will be a cohort. It's not quite the same as the other cohorts because of all the different issues, but over the coming sessions, you will get to build those levels of trust, and you will start sharing, and you will start, already you're offering helpful advice and feedback. And if you're not saying anything, the fact that you're nodding and smiling is really powerful feedback, because everybody can see you. I hope everybody can see you. And the fact that you're encouraging and supporting, you know, Jenny, you've got a great cohort again. And you're all probably from the 4 universities, the 4 universities, no, I'm a scientist, I can count. So you've probably not come across each other before, and this is the first time you've engaged with one another. So brilliant. And again, it's a shame that we're not in a venue together running around doing the silly things we do, but hey, we've got to do the best we can with what we've got, and this is a great platform to allow you to meet, to share, to build relationships and trust and support one another, because you are now at a point where you're taking control of your future. You're not going to be bounced around by the vagaries of funding bids and whatever else is going on. Yes, it's an uncertain world. Yes, there's all sorts of unknowns out there, but you can take control, and that's part of this journey. And trying to think through the effectual model. You don't have to have everything in place. You don't have to wait till you've got everything before you can do anything. What have you got? What's your bird in the hand? And what are you going to do with it? And you make that call, with support from one another, but it's your choice. You are in control, and that's, if nothing else from anything you've got, you can start a conversation, you can listen to people, and you can analyze what they give you, because you are going to do the next best step, and take control. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Jenny about the exciting things that happen in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm good at sharing that kind of stuff. Thank you, Simon. While Simon's still here and we've got a few minutes, does anybody have any questions for him, either your own experiences, any of Simon's, any thoughts on the content, anything you want to share? Helen?
Hi, I don't know if we've got enough time for this. I was just wondering if there's any chance I could give my little business card thingy, if that's okay. Sorry. I'm also really nervous. I don't like talking in front of people, which is hilarious because I'm a lecturer. So here it is. Hi, my name is Helen Knight, and I'm a cognitive neuroscientist working at the University of Sunderland. I research why people with addictions seem to focus their attention on addiction-related stimuli, things like pubs and betting shops, which is a major risk factor of relapse. The ultimate goal is to help people either build better coping mechanisms in place, or better yet, prevent them from paying attention to these things in the first place.
So let me see if I understood what you do. You work in a very clever area, but you're looking at trying to find ways to help addicts cope better with things that they are addicted to?
Yeah, it's their attention. So people with addictions will pay attention very much to addiction-related information, more than they should, and it's directly related to risk of relapse.
Okay. So are you trying to find ways to deflect attention from these stimuli?
Yes.
So your research helps addicts avoid or deflect their attention from things that are bad for them.
Yeah, according to my funding applications, I'm going to cure addiction. I'm not, because it's not that easy, but that's what I like to say, because people give you money for it.
And that's always good.
Debatably.
So obviously the fact that addiction is a significant issue in our first world problem, then coming up with ways of, if you hook them with, I've got research that will help cure addiction, that that is your verbal business card in one. You might then stretch it a bit to say, so when you say cure, how do you mean cure? And you say, well, of course, when I make cure, I mean all I'm trying to do is find ways to detract people's attention. So you've got the hook for your LinkedIn page. My research will help cure addiction. I mean, put that on your LinkedIn page, and that will get people always a bit interest. Then you've got your sentence, which will talk about people's attention and coping strategies and ways of dealing with that. And then you can go into the real clever bit, which would lose everybody apart from Laura and Steve. And who else is a neuroscientist on this?
Quite a few of us, I think.
You did well here, Jenny. Getting all these clever people. Who would have thought it? And they look quite normal, don't they? They look at that. Brains the size of planets, and yet they look quite normal. So, yeah, so maybe you need a neuroscientist to answer what they thought of your verbal business card rather than an ex-physicist.
Does anybody else have any comments for Helen's verbal business card? Did it make sense? Do you want to hear more, Steve?
Yeah, I thought it made sense. I thought it was good. Even just down to the term stimuli, it's a very well-used term in psychology, especially. And I don't know whether maybe it could be even more layered. Just the examples of the pub for a drunk could work. But overall, I understood it, and I think it was good. In this type of scenario, personally, I always think it's quite good having an example. But I don't know whether you've got time. So it's John likes to drink. It always resonates quite well when you think of John seeing the pub, but I appreciate that it's tight for time and you need to pack it in.
Usually when I give talks on it, I hilariously gave a talk about this in a pub, and we stopped halfway through for a beer break, and the irony really wasn't lost. But we get these biases all the time. We get them when we're hungry. So I usually put a picture of a high street that's got a Greggs and a pub on it, and then highlight the two differences of being hungry and there's a Greggs that pops out, or just being released from rehab and there's the pub. So you're right, the examples work really well.
That's excellent. Thank you, Helen, and thank you for having a go as well. Laura, you're waving at me.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on something Helen said about what you put in your grant proposals being that you cure addiction. The thing I found really hard about my business card was that end bit, because you're so focused on the little component that goes towards that. It feels really, it's kind of the sort of imposter syndrome thing. It feels slightly fraudulent to say I'm going to, in my case, cure blindness, because you're not going to do that, but the thing that you do might eventually help someone else to cure blindness. And I found that really hard to get over. And also to say I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm a physicist who works in neuroscience, so I don't know about neuroscience.
I'm enjoying all of these disclaimers from everybody and thumbs up. Helen, thank you for doing that. I really want a pasty and a beer now, and I don't have either normally, so you've worked some sort of witchcraft over me there. Okay, thank you. And I think, again, this is proof that it's worth having a shot and having some feedback. And as always, we're warming up just towards the end. So I would encourage you to continue the conversations with one another. You're in your team's channels. Some of you have made great use of those, I'm sure. Some are still going, what's that? If you're finding there's an issue with using the Teams platform, some of you might be brand new to it, we completely understand that. Give me a shout and I'll help as best I possibly can. Just to reiterate, with smaller groups, not monitoring that chat unless you ask me a question directly, in which case it will flag up and I'll have a peek. So you're free to talk to each other, to help each other, to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes within that. If you feel brave after today, then share your verbal business card. It can be written, it can be recorded like Steve did, and we're all now aware of how to give feedback on verbal business cards and what it is that we're really looking for. And I again encourage you and invite you to continue to do that over the remaining 2 weeks, and ideally beyond that as well. As Simon mentioned, you are a cohort, and although you are a virtual cohort right now, you are still people, and at some point I've been promised the pandemic will finish and we will be able to actually get in a room together and have a conversation in person. And Action for Impact is notoriously brilliant at doing this, so we are really good informally having a chat, but really being supportive with one another. And we do it in lovely places. The intention is to continue to aim for us all to get together in person in the future, when that is, and have some food and meet one another. And by then, many, But we'll say what we always do is invite previous delegates from the programs for you, and they're really good at sharing how they've applied what you're learning right now into their lives, not just their research, but a lot of the techniques they've learned, you know, how to change things for the better. So you're part of a big community, an established one, and a really good way to connect with that is through Twitter. And I appreciate not everybody's comfortable with Twitter, but you can sit and watch. You can be an observer rather than a contributor, and still pick up some good tips, but also meet some really helpful people. So again, I'll reiterate the Twitter connections in the email that'll get sent out today. So yeah, so join in and support one another with that as best you can. Week 2 launches today, so if you go back to the VLE, the Canvas VLE, suddenly, ta-da, we will have revealed a whole new big bunch of content, and it's high energy stuff, continuing with the theme of watching a bit and doing a bit and then reporting back to each other. So bear in mind, if you only had the opportunity to access week 1 yesterday, I can appreciate it will have felt like a mad scrum to get to this point, so well done, you did it. But give yourselves a chance and start to have a look at it as soon as you possibly can. And again, we've designed it so that it's in short, sharp, bite-sized chunks, so you can have a little bit here and a little bit there, but keep a note of your thoughts, your responses to what you're seeing on the screen, and also the invitation to take part and have your own evidence when it comes to the next discussion meeting next Tuesday. The focus for week 2 is continue the communications. We will build on the verbal business card. We'll build on the canvases, which we haven't touched on today, but it'll all be part and linked in and interwoven for you to share your story. We have 3 new facilitators joining us, all of whom are very well established, like Stephen and Vicky, in their fields of expertise. There are beach balls, there are pebble monkeys, there are Chris Packham shows up as well. So you're in for a treat. There's a lot going on, and I'm here to answer questions all throughout the week within reason, essentially at midnight or at 4 in the morning. But nonetheless, I'm here if you're struggling. If it's going so well and you just need to tell somebody, come and let me know and I'll share them appropriately, or keep it secret if that's what we need to do. And if anything changes during the week, I get asked for a couple of us so far, just let me know. And we'll do everything we can to accommodate you, what's happening in your life, because we appreciate it's as upside down as it's been. We want to make this as accessible as we can. Things change, we know that, and we'll make room for you as best we can. If there are any other questions, ask them, use the Teams channel, use the and I think so far that's probably everything that I need to wrap up. If you want to share your verbal business cards or canvases, not in the Teams channel, but just with me, you can do that as well through email, and I'll be happy to give you some feedback. But if I was you, I would share it to the bosses. Steve's point was, you know, you're going to get an avalanche of feedback, hopefully, filter it through and choose what you can to. But thank you for being here. It's gone really quickly. 90 minutes feels like, wow, that's a long time, but actually we're done. And you still have the rest of the day to go and do what you need to do. So thank you for being here. Any final thoughts from anybody? All happy? Thumbs up? Yeah? Okay. And thanks to Laura as well for helping manage all of the backstage stuff to get you here. So good luck with week 2. I'll see you back here next Tuesday, if not before. Any comments, let me know. I'm wishing you a happy, healthy week ahead. Thank you. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.